Live from Western Kentucky University, capital of the Hilltopper Nation. Whether it's in the locker room or on the field, behind the clipboard or on the court, home or away, we've got you covered. Get ready to enter the Red Zone, your destination for all things sports, right here on Revolution 91.7.
Welcome back inside the Red Zone for another edition here on Revolution 91.7. Josh Holland here with Jeff Lightsy and no one else in studio. We have a great show. Oh, it's Billy. Hey, Billy. Couldn't see you there with your sunglasses. It's kind of like Big Daddy where the little kid's afraid of people, so he wears sunglasses.
Well, my future's too bright, Josh, so I have to wear sunglasses everywhere I go.
We'll pause and give you the recognition that you want after preparing that joke for the past hour.
Yeah, thank you.
He's been waiting to say that.
That's just, that's
but
what
if
this
you
point
don't
is.
mind, Billy, we will get to things that matter,
Sports.
like the Lady Topper ending their season in the women's NCAA tournament for the second season in a row, the first time since the 1990s that's happened here on the Hill, and then we've got a lot more basketball because, fellas, the way the calendar works out.
It's March?
It's March.
Well, so what does that mean, Josh?
There's basketball. So we're going to talk a little bit of local hoops, what Louisville did, what UK did, and then what that means going into the Sweet 16. So thanks for tuning in here to the Red Zone. Fellas, in Berkeley, California, which I think we all wanted to be there.
Oh, I really wish I was there.
San Fran's got some great food, I've heard.
So
I also wanted to catch a basketball game. I would have done a lot of eating in my free time.
Oh, was there a basketball game in
I think there was,
California?
Really.
But the Lady Toppers facing Texas, and it was a battle of outside versus inside. One team had 6'7", 6'5" on their front line. We talked about Imani McGee Stafford last week with Rick Cantu from the Austin American Statesman, and it really proved to be the difference in those two ladies inside against a team that's tallest starter and Chastity Gooch is 6 foot. It was a big mismatch that the Lady Tops tried to make up with 3-point shots, but just couldn't do it.
Yeah, they got close enough. The Tops did hit 13 threes in the game. They also forced a lot of turnovers, 19 turnovers during the game, but it was just a little bit too much. They came on late. They started off on a slow start. Second half came on late, tried to recover, but, one shot short of pulling off the upset.
Well, basketball is a game of runs, guys, and I truly think this game really embodied that. And you saw it was a tough, a little sloppy game early on, went 25 all at half, and then WKU hit some shots. They hit 4 in a row. The threes were draining. They had a little bit of a lead. I think they got to 38-31, and then Texas was able to come back, and they went on a 12-4 run of their own late to take a 57-55 lead. And after that, WKU was never able to regain the lead. So a noble effort by the Toppers, staying with them a lot better than I thought they were going to do, personally, in my prediction. But, it came up late, and it was just one bucket too short.
Well, the Lady Toppers shot something like 13 for 48 in the conference tournament and then shot 12 for 30 in one game. It was clear what their game plan was, and Rick Cantu last week said, hey, if you hit threes, you got a shot. But the problem is, and we see this in men's basketball with teams like Kentucky and even Arizona at times, when you have that one person that can get any miss at any time, it can erase so many deficiencies in the backcourt, and Texas wasn't good at the guard position. It was clear who the better team with Kendall Noble, Ileana Johnson, and Alexis Govan was in the backcourt. It was clear.
Yeah.
But it was more clear who the better team was in the front court with Imani McGee Stafford.
Yeah, and Chastity Gooch is a great player, one of the best to ever wear the red and white for the Lady Toppers, but her game is not to get the rebounds. And she does play like a power forward or center kind of position, but she came in with 6 rebounds, a noble effort there, but, that's not her game, and that's where Texas was able to take control.
She does finish her career top 5 in history in WK in rebounds. So her game is rebounding. It's just when you're 6 foot, used to rebounding
going against 6'7" and 6'5".
That is the point I'm trying to make, Josh. Thank you for jumping inside my brain and
you're welcome, buddy.
Figuring it all out of there.
I just like when you
say
say
a little messed up.
He just helped you put it all together, Billy. It's all good, man. It's okay.
Gooch. We saw a different Gooch. That Chastity is generally bruising inside, and it's kind of an inside-out game between her and Alexis, her and Kendall. And from the get-go, Chastity Gooch is shooting threes. I think she was 2 of 3 to start the game. Had the first 6 points for WKU, and then she goes on to set a school record for threes in a game in the NCAA tournament with 5. This Gooch player, this girl that just continues to show different sides, almost brought them through. And I know Alexis Govan gets the final shot, but if Chastity Gooch doesn't start like that and have those 25 points,
they're never in it.
It's never a game of runs. It's a game of one run by Texas.
Yeah. I mean, Chastity Gooch, like you said, she finished with 25 points, and Billy alluded to 6 rebounds, and her 3-point shooting was big. Govan also played a big role in having 20 points and also chiming in with, I think she had 4 boards and 2 steals. But one of the biggest reasons why I think the Tops could have had a better shot is if anybody else shoots well. I mean, Gooch and Govan combined for 14 for 30 on field goals. Everybody else was 7 to 34. So if anybody else can give them some type of...
Micah Jones, to her credit, I think she had 3 threes for the first time since maybe November.
Well, she plays her game. She plays her game where she doesn't turn over the ball and passes it. And I mean, but they have to have somebody else. Kendall Noble had 10 rebounds, but I mean...
The team is set up to have other players, but the problem is that when you have a player like Kendall Noble, who this team was well set up diversity-wise. You had Alexis Govan, who's a tweener. You have Chastity Gooch, who generally plays inside but can also shoot. Kendall Noble was the slasher. Kendall Noble was the typical get in the middle of the offense, get in the middle of the defense, and mess things up. Get in the middle, get off the rebounds. But you can't do that against 6'7" when you're 5'11".
But when 7 to 34, I mean, you can't win a basketball game like that. You go 7 to 34 from the field. I mean, it's just not good enough. And that's
no, it's not. I'm not sure that's Kendall Noble's fault.
No, I'm not blaming it on. No, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. Texas wasn't a 5 seed for no reason. I mean, they're a pretty good basketball team. So I mean, that hurts the Tops in the end. But I think that if we could get a couple more buckets, we might be having a different conversation. It might be a 5-12 upset.
Well, they had to anticipate that a little bit. I mean, if the game plan was to shoot from the perimeter and not go inside, you're going to, I mean, naturally have more missed shots unless you have a hot shooting night. So yeah, I come to see that where you can miss a few shots here and there. It's just that the players that usually would come in like freshman Bria Gaines that comes in and hits a big shot here or there, it just didn't happen in this game.
Yeah, and it was all negated by 2 players. It's so weird to watch a game like this because you're used to seeing a Lady Topper team that can bring Tasia Brown, and Billy, you know how I feel about Tasia's game off the bench. But what is she? She's a slasher. She gets bad the defense. She's a skinnier Kendall Noble, not as good on the defensive end, but she gets to the rim and makes things happen at the rim. All of that is negated by 1 player. And it's just, they didn't, I don't know if it's so much they didn't have anyone else step up, as much as they didn't have anyone else that knew how to step up. Does that make sense?
I get what you're saying.
They didn't know where is Tasia Brown supposed to go if she's not slashing? Like, how do you use that player better? How do you use Kendall Noble better? Corner 3, she's okay, but the rest of the arc, she's not great.
But is that something you go over when you're scouting? I mean, it's not like Michelle Clark.
Well, yeah, she didn't just overlook it. I just don't know.
Yeah, it's just like I think that's something that. I mean, once you see your draw, you know who you're playing, you scout your team, you see that they have a center that is gigantic, that's 6'5" or 6'7" or whatever. And so that's something you go over in your game plan. The game plan was to shoot the outside shot, and we got that. We got 5 threes out of Chastity. You got 20 points out of Govan. And so now as a coach, I think that you have to adjust your game, adjust the way your team plays to try to get the win.
Well, they tried to do that. They tried to shoot from the perimeter, and you saw what happened on the missed shots and stuff. But I mean, it just wasn't their game, and it goes back to the seeding questionability that the Lady Toppers got. They got a 12 seed when we were thinking they were going to be a 9 or a 10.
30 wins.
But 12, they're 30 wins, their first 30-win season since they won 32 in 1986 and went to the Final Four. I mean, you got to give this team some credit. They were regular and postseason Conference USA champs, and they end up with the 12 seed, and the matchup ends up being against the 2 giants
that destroyed Western's game. Here's the problem with the seeding that we really didn't even talk about last week is it's all about visibility. I mean, you looking at a team in... I'm trying to think of a team that maybe got a higher seed than they should have women's wise, but look at like a UCLA in the men's game. They didn't have a good season.
They had
but they're
12
UCLA
losses?
And they were on TV, right? So presumably what the selection committee saw from WKU was the last 5 or so games of the regular season and the conference tournament, which were all like
questionable.
Other than the Florida games, they were all 1-possession games.
Right.
They didn't watch this team when they were beating people by 35, and that hurts. And I think that. Maybe in 2 years, if WKU has 30 wins and gets an 8, you can look back to this season and last season and think they don't get that 8 or 9 or 10 without showing up against Baylor and showing up against Texas. And it's a process that's not going to happen in 1 year. You have to be visible.
True. But you don't think that the game against Baylor in kind of the same situation that you're describing, you don't think the game against Baylor last year gave the committee enough selection for them to have better than a 12 seed. Because I think just like 12 seed right off the bat is
well,
just
last year they were
a
14 seed, so they were better.
Yeah. It's an improvement. I mean, it's not much.
So we'll just go up by 2 every year.
2 every. Hey,
okay,
maybe that's what we need.
If you extrapolate that till 2018, there's a 2 seed.
Well, that's pretty good, Josh.
Good math.
It's just that they did expand. They expanded their win total, and they got into a higher seed in a 12. But there's just not that visibility advantage unless you're watching American Sports Network. Every time the game is cast,
you're a Conference USA junkie.
Well, that's just a mid-major school. Like, they can't do anything about that.
It's the same on both sides. So, but going back to, they get a 12, they're facing a 5. It's probably more like a second-round matchup, like an 8 versus a 4. Like, those teams were both better than how they were seeded. I don't know if WKU was the lesser team on that day. I think they just had no one that was 6'7".
Yeah.
And that makes it pretty rough. But these 2 girls, in Alexis Govan and Chastity Gooch, what they might have lacked in height, they do not lack in Hilltopper lore. They'll go down as 2 of the best players in WKU history. After the season wrapped up, we're going to take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk more about what those 2 players meant to the program over the past 3 years, where they end in the record books, and what that means going forward for this Lady Topper program. So thanks for tuning in here to Redzone Radio on Revolution 91.7.
Me, a cat, moving in with a single guy. At first, I thought it might be a little weird, but turns out it's actually pretty amusing. For instance, like my human's gotten so used to me being around, sometimes I think he forgets I'm here. He'll get up for work, shower, shave, and come out with no pants. Plops right down in front of the TV. Hello, there's a lady in the room.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet.
Be that person.
Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Remember when your neighbor found us naked in the car, and the time some outdoor action got us kicked out of the park? Getting frisky in the dark, I gave your eye a poke. I think the dog is also in the bed. Do I smell smoke, you and me? We never, ever, ever give up.
You didn't give up on sex. Don't give up on birth control either. There are more methods than you think. Visit bedsider.org to compare all the choices. Brought to you by Bedsider and the Ad Council. Bedsider.org.
Talking all things Topper sports, you're listening to Red Zone on Revolution 91.7.
Thanks for inviting us into your car, radio, internet,
Where the grass is
wherever
green,
you are.
the girls are pretty.
And there's Billy Rutledge with his weekly karaoke edition.
Well, the bumps are so good here. Your roommate was the one that actually created them.
They did. Shout out to Cameron Coates, former production director here at Revolution 91.7. He knows his way around the production boards and around our hearts.
Thanks, Cam.
So, fellas, we come back after talking about the end of a season, but it's a little bit more than that here for Lady Topper basketball, the end of an era. We kind of did this same talk last week about TJ Price and George Fant. And it's weird that there is another duo just on the women's side of the the basketball program here at WKU that just meant an incredible amount, that took a team through coaching change and took a team through a conference change, and now they're going to go down in history both near the very top in a lot of different areas.
It's really eerie, to be honest, the similarities between the 2 stars of the men's
and by the way,
team. They're like intermingling together. Right?
Yeah,
George Fant and Chastity Gooch are engaged.
Just wait till 21 to 23 years from now, that baby in a Hilltopper uniform.
Do you think they'd let him go anywhere else? Or he or she?
There's no way.
They'd have to go to Western.
Unless they're like a 5-star recruit.
Besides that, the point is Chastity Gooch, Alexis Govan, what they were able to overcome, especially on the women's side. The men had some success when George and TJ were the freshmen, but when freshman year came around for Chastity and Alexis, the Lady Toppers were struggling, and they were a program near the bottom. And when Michelle Clark heard, we talked about this last week, being one of the greatest first few U coaches at Western of all time, what they were able to build around these 2 players, and they were able to become something special, something that was been in the tournament the last 2 years. These players are Conference USA Players of the Year. At least Chastity Gooch is. Alexis Govan was MVP of the Conference USA tournament. Just amazing how much strides these 2 women have made, not just personally, individually, but the program itself.
And these 2 girls named to all region. after this tournament. The first time that 2 players from WKU have been named All-Region for a long time now. That puts them both in consideration for All-America honors.
Yep.
And it's the first time ever that a Conference USA school has had 2 players named that
Same year.
in the same year.
From the same school?
They just, if you want an award, then I'm sorry, because Alexis Govan and Chastity Gooch already have them. They have the places in Hilltopper record books. They have, it's the same thing as TJ Price and George Fant, where it's uncanny how 2 of the greatest players of all time in this Hilltopper uniform, Lady Topper uniform, played on the same team for 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, Chastity Gooch, she's just one of the most special players to ever put on the uniform. I mean, she ranks in the top 5 at WKU in scoring, rebounding, blocks, and steals.
Almost every category.
I mean, that's pretty much, that's not the game of basketball. And finishing her career with over 1,900 points. I mean, like Billy said, she was the Conference USA Player of the Year. I mean, with averaging 17.2 points a game, right under 7 rebounds. I mean, like they led the team to 30 wins, which is the most ever in school history. So I mean, they left their legacy here at Western, at the hill, on top of the hill.
I can't just get over the comparison between the men's and the women's. Like, I just can't overlook it right now. It's George Fant.
You probably can't see it. You're wearing sunglasses.
Do we have to go over this again?
Yes.
My future's that bright, but
okay.
But I'm saying though, Alexis Govan and TJ Price are kind of the same player. They're guards that shoot from the outside, but George Fant, Chastity Gooch getting married, both playing in the inside, and I mean they're both ranking in near the same scoring wise. I just can't. It blows my mind right now, Josh. I can't
You can't fathom it.
I can't fathom that 2 of the best players to ever play for the Hilltoppers on men's and women's came in the same year. They're in the same class, the same situation where they're changing coaches, they change conferences. It's one of those twilight moments.
It is
right
pretty
now.
surreal.
You know what's ridiculous too? First of all, we'll go here first. Chastity Gooch is the quietest star that I've seen in a long time.
She can dance though. Did you watch her after the Conference USA
win? I had
win?
a camera right there. Of course I did. Yeah, I did. Her, Bria Gaines, all of the front court killing it, and I think they all learned it from Kiera Muhammad.
Hey, Kiera Muhammad was getting down.
She always does.
She was getting down.
But this girl, I mean, you talk to this girl in a media situation, and you think she's probably a freshman who hasn't seen the court. She's just really shy, reserved, doesn't have much to say. Most of her answers are pretty short. That's not because she's not good or doesn't know what she's doing. It's just her personality was not indicative of someone who was a Conference USA Player of the Year, all-region selection, top 4 in most important statistical categories for a program all time.
Yeah, and it's kind of polar opposite of Alexis Govan, who's really the heart and soul of that team. And, she missed out on the campaign last year, but she still ranks near the top. And can you imagine the 22 games that she could get back from her junior year where she would rank up? She'd be right next to Chastity Gooch in the top 5.
Yeah, she'd be in the
she'd
top
be
5.
more. She would probably be in the top 3 in points, I think.
Yeah, she's
right above
11th.
Chastity.
She's 11th in points, and
that's
like you said, she missed most of her junior season, so she only played in 11 games.
For a program, we talked about the men's last week. This program is losing 2 iconic players, and this isn't just one of those things where we look back and it's recent, so we're talking who's the greatest of all time. Statistically, 2 of the greatest players of all time in WKU, and both programs are going to go through a period of time where they are losing irreplaceable players. Like this team's not going to see another 3rd, 4th player in program history in points, blocks, rebounds, steals. Those players just don't come along, and so I think next year is a testament to who Coach Hurd is and how she puts together a team.
Definitely. We're definitely going to see how Coach Hurd can get these ladies to turn around and how she will be able to rebound from losing her 2 best players, like you said, 2 of the best players in the history of the program. And we'll see if she's able to, if the recruiting is working. I mean, how good she is out on the recruiting and also how good she is at player development. Who steps up next year and who is able to develop their game into a better players and able to, because you won't be able to fully replace Govan or Gooch, but who will be able to step up and fill the void left by those 2 superstar
Josh,
players.
I'll give you a hypothetical here, so tell me what you
Bring
think.
it.
Well, I'm drawing a blank, but let me think about it again. But
you can't set up a hypothetical and then
draw
get
blank
it in 2 seconds.
Well, I was thinking about Jeff.
Record.
That's a Hilltopper moment right there. But all right, so here's your hypothetical. If the coach for the women's team, Michelle Clark Hurd, comes in and she doesn't have Gooch or Govan, does she have the same success that they're having right now? I know they're two of the best players, but is Michelle Clark-Heard still considered one of the best coaches?
Does your hypothetical, how do you,
they just don't.
Is it the exact same
So they
team
just
without
don't
those two
exist.
players?
exact same team without those two players? Do you think
I don't
they
think you
find the
can do
success?
that. I mean, you have to at least replace those two players with average players. You can't just subtract them.
Because
Okay,
that's
average. The average players, two average players.
35 points a game going.
How do you think the women are going to do? And now this is a testament to Coach Heard and how she's been able to bring this program up. Has it been just these two players and their dominance? And I know they're scoring this many points at the same time.
I don't think you can separate the variables like that. I don't think that you can say that Chastity Gooch and Alexis Govan are two of the best players of all time separate from Michelle Clark-Heard, because Clark-Heard comes in as a storied post player herself. You think she didn't teach Chastity Gooch some moves? I don't think you can separate those. I mean, she was with them for 3 years. They weren't the greatest players of all time their sophomore year when they came in. They were pretty good players, but Chastity Gooch was in foul trouble a lot. Alexis Govan took too many shots her freshman year. I don't think you can separate those and say, all right, who is Heard without these players and who are these players without Heard? Because 75% of Heard's career as a head coach and 75% of Gooch and Govan's career as a player are together.
Okay, well now we fast forward to next year where Clark-Heard doesn't have Govan and they doesn't have Gooch. So how do you think this team responds? How do you think that has Michelle Clark-Heard been able to coach this team up to a 30-win season because of these two girls, or do you think it's because Michelle Clark-Heard?
If you're asking, are they going to win 30 games again next year?
I don't think they will.
You have to say no, because that's only the second time it's been done in program history and the first time it's been done in Conference USA history. That's like if Kentucky goes undefeated, the rest of are they going to
go undefeated again next year?
Well, they might. Maybe not the Lady Toppers.
That's fair, because they'll bring in
five more. Yeah, McDonald's.
But you can't.
Very true.
I don't think you can look at it this way. You can't say, here is a historic Lady Topper season with two of the best players of all time. Are they going to repeat it without them? No.
It's going to be somewhat of a
repeating. They probably wouldn't repeat it with them.
Yeah.
That you put these fifth-year eligibility, they probably don't win 31 games again next year, because that's just probability-wise.
It's very hard.
There was a lot of games that they won down the stretch that they probably shouldn't have won. I mean, there was a lot of close games in the conference tournament. I don't think even with them they win 30 games again next season. So 25 probably, that's a realistic number, could probably still win you the conference tournament.
We'll write it down. Josh saying 25 right now?
25, over under 25, Billy.
I'm going to say under.
I think I'm going to go under too, because like you said, you're losing two of the best players ever. 30 wins is a lot. 25 is a lot to ask for. You can still win a conference tournament with 25 or under wins. So I'm going to go
can win a conference tournament with what?
17.
4, really? Like
7.
They can win a game in the entire conference tournament, and if it's a league that you get a bid in.
Well, I was thinking about
the
men's team. I think the last time they won the conference tournament, they had 17 wins.
Right. So I think under. I think nobody's going to be able to score. I think Kendall Noble may get her quadruple double the next year, just since out of necessity. But I just don't see anybody replacing Govan and Gooch immediately. I think this team struggles the next year, and that's just me being a realist.
Next year is definitely going to be a rebuilding year.
And I would say the same thing for the men's too. I think unless they bring in a JUCO player, which they are bringing in one or a couple. I don't think that they're going to find immediate success. They still have some learning to do.
I see for the men's. I want to say that I think Justin Johnson will step up next year. I don't know. he won't be able to fully replace George Fant, but I think he has a lot of the same attributes. He's bigger. He's more athletic. So I think he'll be able to, be able to step in and fill it right away.
Well, Lady Toppers, season is over, Josh.
Wow, can we do that more sad? Do you want me to play some trombone wah wah?
That was about as sad as it gets, Billy.
But if we're talking about
just keeping it real, guys.
If we're talking about how this team replaces, I'm going to put this down. You jokingly mentioned write down 25 wins. My way too early prediction that I gave after the conference tournament was 2019 Conference USA tournament. Tasia Brown scores 19, gets 6 boards, 4 steals, and wins the tournament MVP. That girl's going to be good.
Please repeat the year again.
2019.
2019.
Her senior year as a Lady Topper.
You think she's going to score 19 points?
She's going to win tournament MVP.
Tournament MVP.
She's going to be in a similar. We talked last week about how DJ Clayton and Justin Johnson can be great players, but probably won't have the opportunity to put up the numbers that Price and Fant did because of the fact that they played all 4 years, started all 4 years. I think Tasia Brown's in that same category. I think she has a chance, skill set wise, to be close to as good as Alexis Govan is. She just didn't start for 4 years.
Do you think she makes that jump to kind of the next level this upcoming year?
No, I think it's pretty natural that you make that jump your junior year. I mean, you're still learning stuff. She's still going to be 19 for part of the next
Right, but out
season.
of necessity, she's probably going to start.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to start. That doesn't mean she's going to be a great player. I mean, she's going to start for the first time in her career, and she's going to have ups and downs.
So we should see at least some flashes of it, right, next year?
Definitely.
We saw some flashes of it this year.
Right, but I'm just saying, for her to be able to be winning tournament MVP in 2019, that she should be showing some flashes of greatness next year.
That also is 4 years from now, Billy.
That's all.
I don't think it's any question she's going to show flashes next year. She's going to show flashes this year.
Well,
she did in the conference
she
tournament.
better, because the Lady Toppers need somebody to.
Well, yeah,
What's your argument? You asked if she was going to, and now
I was asking
she
you
has to
questions.
step up,
I didn't
Billy.
have an argument. I was asking you what you thought about.
She has to step up, Billy. They're losing, like we said. I mean,
Well,
look how many
somebody's gonna have
points
to
per
score
game.
points.
Somebody's
Nobody
gonna
scored in the tournament besides
or against
Govan
Texas.
or Gooch.
Against Texas.
Speaking of losing, Billy and his train of thought today is just all over the daggone place.
Well,
I think it's those glasses, man.
I lost the train of thought on the hypothetical. I'll give you that one, but I think I'm doing a pretty good job. Besides that,
Well, Billy, regardless of what you think, we're going to give you a second to corral the troops up there in that noggin under that just beautiful, beautiful hair.
Please
As
don't
we
let
head to
it.
break, we'll come back. We're going to throw in a little bit of Tops baseball before we hit to regional hoops and March Madness. So come back. We'll talk about a pretty big win for the Tops baseball team at Bowling Green Ballpark yesterday, and then get to Louisville and Kentucky in March Madness Sweet 16. We've got a Sweet 30 left to go here on Redzone Radio on Revolution 91.7.
High blood pressure is serious, and if you think I'm just going to keep ticking away, you're wrong. I can quit whenever I want, but I like my job. Just treat me better. Maybe we can do some exercise on occasion. After all, we're in this together.
Don't let your heart quit on you. High blood pressure can lead to a stroke, heart attack, or death. Get yours to a healthy range before it's too late. Find out how at heart.org/blood pressure. A message from the American Heart Association, the American Stroke Association, and the Ad Council.
Who might you save?
Your mother, your father, your husband, uncle, aunt, son.
Learn FAST, F-A-S-T, the sudden signs of a stroke. F, face drooping. A, arm weakness. S, speech difficulty. T, time to call 911. You could save
your friend, teacher, boss.
So learn FAST, then pass it on, because you never know who might save you.
Your wife, your colleague.
Spot a stroke fast. Visit strokeassociation.org. Brought to you by the American Stroke Association and the Ad Council.
Keeping you up to date on Western Kentucky sports, you're in the Red Zone right here on Revolution 91.7.
Welcome back into the Red Zone on Revolution 91.7. Josh Holland, Jeff Lightsy, Billy Rutledge here in studio for another week of action on the Hill. Just wrapped up some Lady Topper hoops action and talked really about the history of two ladies, Govan and Gooch, that will never wear a jersey. And I don't know if that's as sad as Billy Rutledge put it earlier.
In-game jersey.
That's fair. I mean, they could just rock the 30.
I could wear a jersey right now.
That's a valid point, Billy. With two teams that wore jerseys yesterday, coincidentally, at the Bowling Green Ballpark, the Tops in UK, and it's a game that they play every year at the Bowling Green Ballpark. It gives chance for a bigger crowd. I think there was close to 4,000 fans at the ballpark there yesterday, and generally it's a pretty close game. I mean, it's been a 3-2 game before. It was a walk-off home run in 18 innings last year. So last night obviously was going to be close, right, Jeff?
Yeah, well, listen, that's what we thought.
Until the second inning.
Yeah, until the 12-0 run, the Tops.
I think it was a 4-run.
4-run second. It was a
4-run second inning and 5-run
they
sixth.
scored 12.
Well, yeah, it was a 12. Well, not all in the second
It was
inning.
a 12-0 run.
12-0
really?
run.
Well, I don't know why you're challenging. It was,
I mean, yeah.
they were down 3-0. They won 12-3. Do the math.
Yeah, but I was thinking he was talking about the inning.
No, the inning, it was a 4-run second inning.
The inning ends the run. It's not like you just... I mean, there was 12
No, it's not.
unanswered.
They scored
12 unanswered.
12 unanswered points, Billy.
It wasn't a run.
12
though.
unanswered.
It's like saying the timeout stops the run in basketball.
No,
if
it doesn't.
If you
It's a
score without
12-0
them
run.
scoring, it's a run.
It just wasn't a 12. It wasn't a 12 inning run. I mean, 12 run inning.
Yeah, but this baseball team's doing pretty good. I mean, last night with 2 outs, they were 6 for 14 with 7 RBIs. I mean, that's terrific. Usually Western Kentucky baseball's grounding out into double plays and just getting out of the inning. But if they can do that every game, I mean, they're going to be able to whoop some of the better teams. And Kentucky plays a pitcher that, has never pitched before one of his first games. So they're not starting the weekend starters against Western. If it was a weekend series, I don't know if Western would be winning.
Well, Western wasn't starting the weekend starters. I mean, they're starting a freshman in Logan Wines.
Yeah, lefty.
It's not like they were starting
but
Josh
Western
Hartley
would
like
get
they used to.
shut down if they played a weekend series. I don't think they would win a weekend series.
You don't think so?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, hold on. Those are two different things. Shut down and wouldn't win a weekend series are two different things. Shut down is lose all three. You don't score many runs.
Yeah, pretty bad.
There's not that big of a talent disparity between this Hilltopper baseball team and the Kentucky one that was there yesterday.
No, but the pitching that played Western last night wasn't the pitching that you would see in a weekend.
Yeah, and the pitching it's the same on both sides.
No, it wasn't. The Western's bullpen, which did fantastic, by the way, middle innings, pitched sixth inning, Higgs, Harmon, Glasscock, and Pearson, who are their normal players that come in and out of the bullpen, who usually struggle, did awesome. But Kentucky didn't play the same pitchers that they usually do. But all I'm saying is, in this situation, all credit to Western Kentucky. In a weekend series, it may be a little different, but Western really shows it.
But you're referencing Kentucky's pitching as not being weekend pitching. How many times has Logan Wines? You were the baseball beat writer last year. You know the Tuesday starter and the weekend starters aren't the same starters.
I do know that. But I mean, but
the argument goes both sides. That's what my point is. Your argument is that Kentucky would win a weekend series because they weren't throwing out weekend pitching. Neither was WKU.
Well, what about the hitting as well? I mean, we're talking about pitching. You still got to score runs to win a baseball game. Kentucky had 3 runs in the first inning, and then after that, flat.
And the 3 runs that they had in the first inning, 2 of them were because of a mistake by Logan Wines, where he went to first when there was no one at first and should have just dumped it off home.
Yeah, Western has something magical going on at Bowling Green Ballpark because they seem to win. I don't know.
They've only lost to Louisville. I think they're 5-1.
Right, exactly. So it just seems like when Western gets into this place, they play a little bit differently. They want to pump up the fans. The most fans to see a Western baseball game there last night. So they just whenever they go to Bowling Green Ballpark, they win. Maybe they should change homes.
Maybe the park is just hitter friendly to WKU.
It's a bigger park.
That's what's amazing.
This team would have had 2 or 3 more home runs if they were playing in the Nick Dennis Field. I know there's other variables about how you might play differently in a different stadium.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking into account the dimensions of the field, both Anderson Miller and Cody Wofford hit the top of deep right and deep left, which both would have gone out easily in Nick Dennis Field. They were smoking the ball off of whoever pitched for Kentucky.
16 hits and 12 runs? I mean, that's pretty amazing. Both of those season high for the Tops. And also, you mentioned Cody Wofford. I mean, he had a 3-run homer and season high 4 RBIs. So, I mean, he went 3 for 5 at the plate. So I think that, whether it was secondary pitchers or weekend pitchers, Tuesday pitchers, whatever. I mean, Cody Wofford, he was locked in yesterday and he had a really good game, and he was one of the main reasons Western was able to pull out the win.
Yeah, and Western's on a little bit of a roll right now. They've won 6 of their last 7. They've won
7 of their last 8.
That works too. First 2 USA series versus Old Dominion UTSA, they've both won. They're going to go on the road against UAB, or actually no, it's going to be here against UAB. And, this big 3, it seems like, of Wofford, Anderson Miller, and Ryan Church just seem to bring the runs in. And, it's a very exciting. They lead Conference USA in home runs this year.
There's not just like a metaphorically something different about this team. The lineup's different. When the season started, Cody Wofford was batting leadoff, and Anderson Miller was in the 2 spot. And I think the idea is, hey, you're probably your best overall hitter and your second best power hitter outside of Ryan Church should probably bat with people on base. But I talked to Coach Myers yesterday, and Wofford just wasn't getting it done up top. He referenced plate vision and plate discipline, said that Wofford has shown that he's a lot better being able to hit and run and doing things with players on base than he is at the leadoff. So they switched those. Now you've got Anderson Miller, one of the best players in Conference USA, and a guy who I don't know how many other guys in Conference USA can hit the ball 400 feet and then throw the ball 93 miles per hour.
He's going to get drafted.
He's going to be, as his leadoff song says, a young money millionaire. And he's got the baby face. He's going to look like a 12-year-old making millions of dollars in the majors. But that lineup change seems to spark this Hilltopper offense. And beginning of the season, they're 6-9. It seemed like another year where you talk at media day and they talk about how good the offense is going to be and how much experience the junior college players bringing in. That it just doesn't work. But hard to argue with 7 of your last 8 and beating 2 good teams in Old Dominion and San Antonio.
Well, we're going to have to see if that continued success because baseball season's a little bit longer. maybe not at least month-wise, but there's a lot of games. It's kind of a grind that they have to play, and the pitching's going to have to stay consistent. I mean, it played a almost perfect bullpen, the pitching did. They pitched 6 innings of scoreless relief, so they're going to have to continue to do that. And this offense is going to go through some struggles. That's just a given in baseball. So when this offense does go through some struggles, is the pitching going to be able to step up? And we saw last night the two do great things. They did it at both the same time. But it's when this baseball team is when the hitting's going good and the pitching's not, and the opposite, if this team's going to still find success.
Well, we'll see if they find success. Big home weekend. It's really weird baseball-wise because basketball, football, you kind of know who's coming in and who's really good. UAB, man, they finished second in Conference USA last year behind a perennial powerhouse in Rice. If WKU can play well this weekend, then I think they kind of solidify how the success is going because UAB is a good baseball team. And Coach Myers talked about that yesterday. So they're in the middle of that season. I guess it's technically off-season for football, but is there really an off-season?
There's never an off-season.
There's no off-season. It's spring football.
So spring football's underway, and we've got a lot of interesting storylines in that spring football, and we'll ramp up more and more about this spring period as we get closer to the red versus white game on April 19th here at Houchins-Smith Stadium. An annual scrimmage between the 1s and 2s, depending on how Jeff Brohm and his staff want to do it. But we got a question on Twitter, Billy, from one of our listeners here on the Red Zone.
Yeah, Daniel Wood asked, the biggest problem with WKU football is the defense. Do we really believe that Holt can improve? And, my first instinct to that is I just got done talking to Holt. It was actually defenders talking to the media today at practice, came from practice to the studio tonight, and Holt was talking to me a lot about what the defense and what he saw, and he says we're working on fundamentals. He's told me they want a solid base, and that's what they're focusing on. They're doing tackling drills 10 minutes to start the practice and 10 minutes after the practice. So there seems to be an emphasis on defense this year. And to the question of do we believe that Holt can improve, I mean, they can't do worse than what they did last year, right?
Look, there's always
nowhere to go but up.
There's always a fall guy, right? If the offense doesn't perform well, it's the quarterback or the offensive coordinator. If the defense doesn't perform well, there's not really, the Mike linebacker, the middle linebacker, is kind of the quarterback of the defense, but it never falls on the middle linebacker. It never falls on the defensive end. It's the coordinator.
It's the coach.
There's only one fall guy when the defense goes bad, and it's Nick Holt. But that's not how it works because this was a Hilltopper team that started a lot of new faces. Prince Charles Awara was a junior, but he walked on as a freshman. And that was his first year starting. Ricardo Singh was a senior, right? All that experience.
Wonderful Terry was a freshman.
He's a
Wonderful Terry was a JUCO transfer. But
first year starting for WKU.
First year starting for Ricardo Singh, who had some talent and then had some off the field injuries involved his freshman year.
Also less.
There's a lot of these guys that were in their first year starting in a conference that was really good offensively.
Yeah, they're
very good offensively. And so now all these guys, outside of a linebacker and two defensive backs, they got the experience.
Plenty of experience.
So it's hard to say that they won't be any better. They have it's inevitable.
There's nowhere to go but up. If WKU, as bad as they were last year on defense, like we said, there's nowhere to go but up. I think that the emphasis on tackling, because that was their biggest problem. It's just strictly tackling. Tackling players, like wrapping up and bring them guys to the ground. And once they improve there, I think they can go nowhere but up. They're going to be playing with an offense that's going to score points. One of the better offenses in the entire country. So as long as they can wrap up and tackle and keep the opposing offensive players in front of them, then they'll be better. They'll do a lot better.
It does hurt when, Brandon Dowdy forces you to go back on the field.
Exactly.
After 5 minutes.
When you have a defense that's not great and you have to go back in 5 minutes, that's a record-setting drive for WKU too.
Right.
There were plenty of games where they had 5 drives of 2 minutes or less. And when you compound the fact that your defense is inexperienced, your defense is small, and they are tired because they're just back on the field, that's ugly. And I think that there's so many more things other than Nick Holt's game plan. The Hilltoppers have designated 5 weeks to spring practice instead of 4 weeks, solely because they want more time to lift weights. Jeff Brohm talked about that in the opening day of spring practice. They want to get bigger. That helps.
Yeah, it don't hurt.
It don't hurt. It don't hurt to get bigger. There's so many more things than Nick Holt. So if the question is Nick Holt the answer? I don't think the question is, can Nick Holt do it? So
it's, can the Toppers do it?
It's, are they going to be bigger?
Yeah.
Do they have to be on the field as long? I'm not sure that Nick Holt is the end all be all, even though it's the easy thing to do to make it.
And also, who will step up for the Tops as the defensive leader? If they have a game where they lose and, the defense didn't play as hot as they expect to play, is who will come in and step up and say, hey, we have to get better. We can't allow this to happen again. I think if they have a definitive defensive captain, a definitive defensive leader to come in and actually be assertive and say, this won't happen again. Or
it's got to be Gavin Rocker, right?
Gavin Rocker, Nick Holt. I mean, Holt's been showing some early leadership signs the first few days of spring practice, in my opinion.
I'm not sure if you can tell the difference between Nick Holt Jr. and Nick Holt Sr. when they're talking.
Not at all.
So it would just sound like one unified leader.
It is, and it trickles down. It's just the family effect. But my really big question here is with the defense is what's going to be improvement. Is it going to be finally that you accept Nick Holt because that he had 2 games that they shut out the opponent, or is it that they don't give up 40, 50 points every game? I'd like to see some improvement by, I know Western's going to score 50, 60 points just with the offense again if they can do that. But, if they score 35 points, I would still say that's improvement. You know what I'm saying?
You're talking about opposing offenses scoring 35
points? If they give
points?
up 35 points, you believe that's improvement?
Yes,
you're talking the high end of both of those. Western Kentucky might score 50 points 2 or 3 times, but in a record-setting season, they scored 60 twice and 51. Like they're not going to match. They're going to regress back to the mean.
You think so?
Yeah, they have a lot of the same players. It's just like the whole Lady Topper argument we had earlier.
Yeah.
Even with Chastity Gooch and Alexis Govan again, they would regress back to the mean because this was a historic season. You don't have back-to-back historic seasons, or else it wouldn't be history.
I think that, but the returning players, Taewon Taylor and Jared Dangerfield, Nicholas Norris, some of and then emerging players like Will Bush, Nakari Span, I think they have a really good chance of putting up really good numbers once again. I think that they can actually, I think this offense could be better than last year's.
There's no way.
You don't think so?
They got 3 returning offensive linemen. Brandon Dowdy decides he wants to come back.
He wants to play
6th year. I don't know, but this team, I don't know. It's going to be hard to be better than that. But my initial point when saying that is, I think that this defense can give up a lot of points
and
but
still be good,
still be improved, just because of the fact that this Western Kentucky offense is 4th in the nation.
I think both of them are going to be. It's going to be decidedly different points. Western Kentucky's not going to score 60 points twice again next semester, I don't think. And it's not because they're not as good, but I think things change. And if the defense improves, that means the offense doesn't have to score.
Won't be as much
pressure. It doesn't have to beat Old Dominion 66-51. It doesn't have to beat Marshall 67-66.
But that doesn't mean that what I think Coach Brohm is establishing a foundation of high-scoring offense. I think that it's something that he's just able to do. It's not that you don't have to score. It's like Oregon goes out and scores 50 points. They don't always have to win 50-10, but they're still able to score 50 in any given time. Any given Saturday, they're able to score 50 points, and sometimes they average 40 points a game. Now with Brandon Dowdy, another year under Brohm, Leon Allen, you have both your returning passer and rusher, one of the best receivers in the conference, in Jared Dangerfield, and also Taewon Taylor. I think there's a really good chance that they're able to put up really high points per game this season, just like they did last year.
I think Jeff likes football.
I really do.
I'm just putting I'm not going to put my money on 2 record-setting seasons back to back. I'm going to. It just.
You're not a gambler, Josh.
But I'm just saying.
Gamble smart money and
maybe
say that the offense regresses to the mean.
Win big money.
It's a reason that there are averages.
Money.
There's a reason that there's like an average and there's a regressing to the mean. They're not going to score as many points as they did last year.
Okay, so you're telling me if there's an over-under on points scored average a game.
So what was the points per game last year? Anybody know?
Their points per game last, I don't remember, but let's see.
It's around 35 or something? Was it around there?
I would say maybe more.
Yeah.
I think it's 37, but it's a consistent. It's 40 points here, 35 points here. It's not 60 and then 21 against Louisiana Tech.
So do you think over under 35 points per game next year?
Slightly over. 36, 37.
Write it down.
I'm going to go with around 40. I think that they can get 40.
I don't think they're going to get 40, just since their schedule seems a little bit tougher
this year. Well, the schedule is we didn't factor that in. I did forget about the schedule.
I'd say right around 35. I'd say you on the money on that, and that's why odds are so hard to bet, because it's just right where you want them. But I think it'd be over, and I think this defense isn't going to be, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of 2002. I don't think they're going to be the best defense. So this offense is going to be on the field a lot, and they're going to have to be scoring a lot. So I think that naturally we're going to go back into this tune that Jeff Brohm has brought to Western Kentucky, where the offense is going to be the
Jeff
best.
Brohm or Bobby Petrino?
Well, Jeff Brohm's really made it his own.
Bobby Petrino brought it.
Well, Bobby Petrino didn't score 66 points
Jeff
a game.
Brohm evolved it. 47 records.
Bobby Petrino taught Jeff Brohm everything he knows.
That's not true. Jeff Brohm's had a coaching tree of several NFL coaches. He's been played under Bobby Petrino. That doesn't mean it's
He
Bobby
played under
Petrino's
him.
system.
He coached under him. He comes in. They run the same system. Bobby Petrino leaves. Jeff Brohm has a quarterback that's been in the system for 2 years, and
They
wide
didn't
receivers
play
helped. Because it was his first year in the system.
He played terrible under Bobby.
It was
though.
his first year in the system.
But his real solid first entire year under Jeff Brohm, he breaks 47
What
records.
changed outside of Bobby Petrino leaving and the strength and conditioning coach leaving?
Jeff Brohm took over. Jeff Brohm took over.
He was also under Jeff Brohm in that year that he was 18 and 14.
That's
well,
true.
he improved.
He was
so the offense improved, but the offense
because he got another
went from here to here.
Another
you know
year
what
in the
I'm saying?
system, Billy. It's not about a different coach because the same coach is running the offensive system.
But as bad as Dowdy played the year Bobby Petrino was here, did you honestly expect him to play that good?
As bad as he played, he had 18 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. That's not terrible.
14 picks is a lot. 14 interceptions.
His touchdown to interception ratio was still more than one.
And he also had games where he didn't even start. He had games that he was benched and he would get pulled.
Was he great? No, but we cannot compare the first year in a system under a first year head coach to a record-setting season.
But I'm saying
in the second year of the system.
Drastic change though is what I'm saying. I'm just saying the drastic change that Dowdy took, the leap. It was a massive leap to go from what did you say, 18 and 14 to what he threw
49 and 10.
49 and 10. You can't say Jeff Brohm had no part of that. I think Jeff Brohm established himself when he was able to transfer, like the transformation Brandon Dowdy had from
it's
year one.
It's a good thing we record this show because at no point did I say that he had no part in it. The point is that Bobby Petrino brought it in here. I'm not arguing what you said about Jeff Brohm making it his own, but Bobby Petrino established a lot of Brohm's offensive mindset. Whatever he does offshoot of Bobby is fine. Every coach has their own stuff. But Bobby Petrino established that offense here in Bowling Green, the fast-paced offense, quick slants, running it out of the shotgun formation. He brought that. That wasn't here with Willie Taggart. Petrino brought it.
That's true.
Jeff Brohm may have made it his own, but you cannot say that, Bobby Petrino didn't coach Brandon Dowdy up because he had 18 and 14 when that's the first year in a system. No one is incredible the first year in a system unless you're Michelle Clark-Hurd.
Okay, well, I'm going to mediate you guys here because you guys have been arguing with each other a few times, but
you were a part of the argument.
You started it, Billy.
Cool, calm, and collected Bill coming in with a reason. Thanks, man.
Well, I'd just like to say that a player doesn't jump from 18 and 14 to 49 and 10 without something. And, I believe Bobby Petrino brought in the system. Jeff Brohm was the offensive coordinator. Jeff Brom's now the coach, and he probably made it a bit of his own. So I think both you guys are a little bit right here, but Brandon Dowdy just made an incredible jump that I don't think any of us were expecting. And I don't think it was just because it was the second year in the system. I think that has a lot to do with it. And that's one.
Why do we have to isolate points? Why does it have to be just because of Jeff Brohm or just because of the second year in the system? I'm conceding that Brohm has something to do with it, but it also, a lot of it has to do, at least equal parts, with it being the second year in a system because you had a guy that completely changed offensive mindsets from a run-first, slow West Coast style of offense
to an air raid.
It is not isolation. Nothing in this world is one or the other, black and white.
They're intertwined.
It is combined, and I don't think we can say it's not because of Jeff Brohm, and it's not because of the second year system. They're intertwined. I'm just saying it is a lot more than people think that Bobby Petrino brought this in.
I also think the contrast in coaching styles as well. I mean, if you talk to some of the players, Bobby Petrino isn't the nicest guy in the room. I mean, he's not a guy that a lot of people like. I think that also Jeff Brohm is more of a player's coach than Bobby. I would want to, even though I haven't talked to him as much, but just the aura you get from both sides, from players that were coached under Petrino and that were also coached and recruited under Brohm, that Brom's more of a player's coach. He's more relatable. Also, Brohm did play the quarterback position, whether it was under Bobby or not. It's more relatable for Dowdy and other players to go on and have great seasons just like Dowdy did this past one.
I would think that this team is more of Brom's team than it is Brohm taking over Petrino's system. I think Petrino brought in the same mindset with Brohm. They were kind of running the same playbook, but I think this team is a lot different with Brohm.
These aren't two coaches from different coaching trees that just happen to run the same offense.
They have a lot of similarities.
Right.
This is a quarterback that played under a coach that learned from said coach. It's not. I'm not discounting Jeff Brohm. I agree with everything Jeff just said about the culture change. And the culture change is big, but at the end of the day, it is still a first-year head coach running the system that he learned under someone else who brought it in before him. If Jeff Brohm comes in when Bobby Petrino came in and starts this same system, Brandon Doughty doesn't throw 49 touchdowns and 10 interceptions because it's the first year in the system.
So how do you think Western would have done if Bobby would have stayed? Do you think
I think they would have had
similar results?
Similar improvement, not the history. Because once again, we've talked over and over again, and consistently my opinion is it wouldn't happen again.
It's an outlier.
It's an outlier, exactly. They would have had similar results. Doughty would have jumped to something like 34-12 or 35 something like that, because it was the second year in a system. The culture change is huge. The culture change is very, very big, but at the end of the day, it is still one coach who learned a system under another one, brought it here together, but it was still the other coach's system that he taught him. They might have come together, but it was still learned under the other coach.
But I think that culture changes it from 35 touchdowns for Doughty to 49.
To 49,
I think that historic season is an outlier, but I think a lot of it has to do with Brohm and his emphasis in bringing in. Petrino's kind of had an aura about him. He kind of had a guy that he's very popular, a national coach kind of restarting again.
Just not a great guy with a great system.
He isn't.
Still a system.
Yeah, he's not a great guy or husband.
Still a system, but it's also he's not Jeff Brohm, and he's not the guy that comes in the player coach, and Jeff Brohm talks to his players a lot differently, I'm sure Petrino does.
Definitely.
So I think Brahm's, had a successful first year. I mean, that's like the best way I could sum it up is, you break 50 school records. It's just, that's pretty successful.
Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think Brandon Doughty's going to come in and throw, he threw 49. I think he's going to come in and throw 55 touchdowns this year. That's not what I'm saying. I still believe, though, that Western will still be able to score around 40 points a game, whether it's more impact from the running game, even though Leon Allen did have 1,500 rushing yards last year.
Which was the record.
Which I'm not even saying he's going to do that, but I think it's going to be more of a joint team effort that everybody's going to contribute more. I think we're going to get more even out of running back in players like Anthony Ace Wills, Marquez Trigg, DeMontre Ward, and players like that. They're going to come in and contribute more and score more points. That's why I still believe that they will score around 40 points a game, whether it's Doughty throwing for 40 touchdowns, or if he goes to 49 again. I still think they'll be around 40 points a game.
If they play ones versus twos in the red versus white game, and they go all out.
I don't know what the word is. Obliteration.
If they play ones versus twos and they go all out, they could score 100.
They could.
Yeah,
easily. There's a huge gap between the ones and the twos right now.
There's a huge gap between the ones and the ones. If you want to be real.
So yeah, I mean, we're coming up, and that was a great conversation. Not even planned. We weren't even really going to touch on football until. Was it the fella's name that tweeted in here?
Daniel Wood.
So thanks to Mr. Daniel Wood for the past 20 minutes of radio. If you have questions like that and you feel like you want to be part of this show, please tweet us at WKU Redzone, and we'll try to get to those on air. It's part of an expansion that we're trying to continue to do on social media through the show. Fellas, we got about 5 minutes left, and we're going to talk a little bit about Louisville and UK. So before we get out of here, tomorrow starts the Sweet 16. And UK, everyone knew they were going to be here. Louisville, been a bit of a different path to get to this Sweet 16. But neither team dominated. The second round.
I was about to say 37-0 or 36.
No. Neither team dominated the second round.
Oh yeah.
And UK, it has this feeling, and maybe it's a perspective that is unfair, but it just seems like UK should win by 20 until they get to the Final Four.
Well, Cincinnati showed the nation how to beat Kentucky for 18 minutes, and they played great. And if it wasn't for a 10-0 Kentucky run right before halftime,
the last 2 minutes of the first half, yes,
Cincinnati's back wouldn't have been broken. And I just think that Kentucky just has so many players and so many, NBA players, and the future All-Stars, that they're able to do that for a long period of time, where Cincinnati has to sub out some players.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, it's not that the nation doesn't have the blueprint to beat Kentucky. I mean, this has been in 4 or 5 games that Kentucky should have lost. That they should have lost. But it goes back to what you just said. They're so deep. They have, 8 NBA players on their roster right now. I mean, Larry Brown went as far as to say that Kentucky would make the playoffs in the East of the NBA.
Which is absolute.
That's ridiculous.
Garbage.
I mean, coming from a guy that's won, but coming from a guy that's won an NBA championship and an NCAA championship, that's high praise. So that lets you know that this Kentucky team is stacked with talent, something that we already know. But the blueprint is there, and I think Bob Huggins' West Virginia team has a really good shot. I mean, he's 8-2 against Cal. and against Calipari, his record against Calipari in 10 games, he's 8-2.
The problem is they don't have any size. I mean, their best rebounder is 6'9".
And that's true, and then a lot of that was Cincinnati's problem as well. But half the battle against Kentucky, though, you have to have the mindset that you want to win. A lot of these teams, they're defeated before they ever get off the bus. I mean, before they ever hit the court, you know.
Well, Hampton was, because the coach called Jesus on the phone.
And that's excluding Hampton. Yeah, that was out of control. But I mean, if you have the mindset that you can go in there and beat these guys, I mean, the West Virginia guys, I mean, if you heard the press conference, just like they put on their pants just like we do. I mean, they're coming in. They're not going to be scared of Kentucky now. That's half the battle. The other half is actually going out there and playing the game. And I just think Kentucky's too much for West Virginia.
Is this the first matchup between Kentucky and West Virginia since West Virginia beat them in the
John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, 2010.
It might be.
Same coach.
Same coach in Calipari. Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see against Cincinnati. They win by
13.
15. Was it 13?
13.
Okay, they win by 13 against Cincinnati. Only one player on Kentucky's roster shot better than 50%. The entire team shot 37%. This team can't shoot.
Not at all.
But this team is 6'10", 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot.
Yeah, 4 7-footers.
Okay,
around there.
It's.
I wish I was.
It's like they went to play pickup basketball and they got the first 5 picks.
Yeah.
And then the next 3 too.
8 picks. Yeah, the first 8 picks.
If you look at this team, there's not much difference outside of height and McDonald's All-American, like stars, than Virginia. They both struggle on offense. They both play really, really good defense. Yeah. And Virginia just got beat. And so I just think it takes a slightly more athletic team unless Kentucky starts to shoot well. If Kentucky starts to shoot well, then no one's going to, it's not single digits.
Every game's like a home game for them too, since Big Blue Nation travels so well.
Well, my thing is, one thing I wrote down is West Virginia's pressure. West Virginia's going to try to speed up the game. You know, we know the Kentucky, the strong point of their team is their big man. They have nice guards, but they're big men. Carl Anthony Towns, Willie Cauley-Stein. I mean, that's the bread and butter. Now, West Virginia, with them they're going to try a full court press the entire game. It's whether, we're going to find out if that's a good or a bad thing. Me personally think that's going to be a bad thing because
all of Kentucky's players can see over the defense.
But
break that press.
But with
it's hard to press guys that are 6'5" at the point.
With the ball handling not being as spectacular as one team might think, as good as Kentucky is, their ball handling isn't that great. Now can West Virginia can West Virginia force some turnovers? And they're going to be their whole game plan is, can they force Kentucky into really bad turnovers? And that's going to be their best shot of winning. If they get them to turn the ball over, they'll have a really good shot. If not, if they start to break this press, it's over.
I don't think Kentucky even has single-digit games on the first game of the weekend. If that makes sense? So against Hampton, of course not. Against West Virginia, no. Probably even in the Final Four, I think they pretty much handled the first team in that weekend. It's the second team. That second game in 3 days, when a young team in Kentucky only has a day to shoot around and prepare for an experienced team of Duke, experienced team of one of these other teams that is closer to the right. Or, I don't know if they're going to face Louisville. I know you're hoping, but I don't know if they're going to face Louisville. But
hey, rivalry game, anything can happen in a rivalry game.
But it's that second game that has me thinking that's where Kentucky gets down. Whether it's the second game, the championship game, or if it's the Elite Eight this weekend, where they don't really have the time to prepare. And it kind of bites them in the butt. So, as this show wraps up, a heck of a show. Jeff Lightsy, the first time on.
Good job.
Obviously have you back again, Jeff. It was really good. Billy Rutledge, almost always insufferable, but we have him on weekly anyways.
I'm like a car with like manual transmission and the driver doesn't know how to shift gears correctly.
Oh my God.
Always the analogies.
How do you think of that stuff?
Thanks for tuning in to the Red Zone here. We talked Lady Topper hoops, a historic season and a historic end to 2 Lady Topper record setters in Chastity Gooch and Alexis Govan. Then spring football, it's coming, y'all. It's spring football game on April 18th and a little bit of basketball with the Sweet 16 starting tomorrow. So thanks for tuning in to this week's edition of the Red Zone on Revolution 91.7.